Welcome to the Four Fires Podcast, where we talk about winning in all four of the essential areas of life.
Welcome back to the Four Fires Podcast. So glad that you joined us today. And today I'm having a conversation with my friend Richard Maddox. He recently just went through the 30-day ruck and has been on a four-dimensional journey for quite some time now. And so I'm going to have Richard introduce himself. But before we do that, I do want to point you towards the Four Fires Tribe. If you caught the last Four Fires podcast, it was all about the Four Fires Tribe and the fire circles. And so if you'd like to join a community of four-dimensional men that are striving to live this four-dimensional life, I encourage you to check out the link in the description and go check out the Four Fires Tribe today. So Richard, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. First, I want to say what encouraging for me to meet somebody and be involved with somebody as young as you are and as impressive as you are. And when you asked me to do this, I was looking forward to it because I wanted to hang out with you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your age, family, profession.
Richard Maddox. I'm 53. I'll be 54 here in a few days. Wife Karen, eldest son Richard Thomas, eldest child Richard Thomas Maddox, and my daughter Rebecca Maddox. He is a recent graduate from college this year, and my daughter will be returning to play soccer at her college in August. So I am an entrepreneur, I suppose. I've got 3 or 4 businesses that I currently have, and I love startups. I love the energy around startups.
Yeah.
I love growing things and building things. So I have a commercial landscape construction maintenance company. I have a call center, and I have some restaurants. So
Great.
That's what I do. I live in Panama City, Florida currently, but now that my children are essentially out of the house, I tell everybody I'm living in loose hands. So all I need is just like a hurricane or something, the right thing, and I probably would move. I like it up here. So I like Peachtree City.
Yeah.
Favorite hobbies, I work a lot. So I would say when I don't work, I love watching English Premier League soccer, which people are going to laugh about. And I love playing golf, and I like to bass fish.
Oh,
so that's all I got.
Yeah, Richard can play golf with the best of them. So I definitely don't want any part of playing golf with you.
Well, it's not like that. It's not like that anymore. I used to play competitively. Now it's just, golf. One of my very few friends that I have, and this will come up later. But I would say, Alan and we've talked about it during the ruck that, if you had to make the call, who would carry your casket?
Right.
And the guy that has kept me playing golf is one of my very best friends, Brad McGraw, and he drags me out at least once a week and just kind of makes me play.
Yeah.
But I look forward to it because I'm piddling around again with my game, and I get to hang out with him. So
right. Yeah. Double whammy there.
Yep.
Sweet. So then, how long have you known about the Four Fires, and tell us about your four-dimensional journey?
Josh Adams is a very good friend of mine, and we do a lot of business together. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, there's this guy, Alan Kemper, I want you to meet." I'm like, "Okay, what's that about?" He said, "I just want you to meet him." I said, "Sure." So I didn't really know, what I was getting into. And I met Alan, and we had a 4-hour conversation maybe.
Wow.
A very long conversation. And I decided in talking to him that it was time for me to, and I'll say this a lot today because it really is very true. And when I say it, I think a lot of people that listen to this will understand it, and maybe it have impact the way it had impact on me. Alan used the term integrity of soul, So I heard it recently put a different way that made a lot of sense to me. Living against consciousness, right? So, not necessarily intentionally, but perhaps in a way that in your heart is wrong, but you don't have any input. You're too far removed from God or the people you're hanging around or whatever. So you're just going with the crowd, going, well, everybody does this, right? Mm-hmm. And but I knew subconsciously that I was not living the life that I grew up to live, or the way I was raised, or you know what my morals were, and so I started the journey then. I think it, and again I equate these two statements. I wrote it down on this page on my cheat sheet here. Living against consciousness, right?
Right.
That's impactful to me. I feel that.
Yeah.
So consciously knowing that I'm not supposed to do any of these various things, but doing them anyway, and justifying it in my own way.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so easy to do too. I mean, everybody can do that.
Yeah. And what I've learned in the 3 years is that instead of doing the stuff I was doing 3 years ago, I'm doing smaller things that 3 years ago I wouldn't even have thought were
Right. Right.
So I'm filtering out habits and behaviors, inputs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So you might have already said this. So 3 years ago was when you had that conversation with
That's
Alan.
correct. I'm in my third year.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. So
I'm in my third year.
coming up on this fall will be 2 years for me. So you've been doing it just a little bit longer than I have.
Well, being twice your age, I have a few more knots to work out of my my rope, so to speak.
We all can look at any of the four fires, and they can be a dumpster fire really at any time. So we all have our own journey, and we're all trying to build them all at the same time. So then, what motivated you ultimately to do the 30-day ruck?
This really impressive guy that I know kept sending me emails. And we went on the trip to Tennessee, and he was the facilitator of that trip, had done a lot of work, and I got to speak to him a little bit while we were there and know him a little bit better. And he kept sending these emails. And so in my mind, I'm like, this kid this might be like part of his gig, is to get people to sign up for this thing. And I like him, so I'm just going to sign up. That's a true story. I just said, well, I like Jeff. He keeps sending me these emails. I'm just going to commit to do this. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the honest to God truth. But then, I just decided that I needed to get back to it.
Right.
My journey in the four fires is a series of cycles. I'll go and then I'll plateau and then I'll kind of go down, and then I don't feel comfortable doing this, and then I'll go back up. And so it's just a series of cycles for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know about the 30-day ruck, it's a 30-day intensive program for living four-dimensionally. So there's a lot of tasks that you're committing to do in each of the four fires, and then tasks that you're committing to abstain from for the 30 days. And you go through the ruck with a group of other men, somewhere between 5 and 7 men, and you're going through and encouraging each other and challenging each other and holding each other accountable to doing all of the things. And then there's a weekly call. So that's what the 30-day ruck is. If you're unaware of that, you can check out the link in the description for more details. And Richard went through the ruck back in May, so just a few months ago, with several other very solid men who we likely will have on the podcast at some point. In fact, one of them's been on the podcast twice, Greg Moffitt.
He's got me. What a great man he is.
Yeah, for sure. So when the ruck came about, and we were in our first week, we went through the first few days, and then we had our first check-in call.
Yep.
One of the things you said, it might have been in week 2, but I'll say that it was in week 1. You said the ruck started right on time. So I wanted to ask you, why at that point did it start right on time? What were the things that you were like, man, I'm so happy I did this?
Yeah, there's several things. That caused me to say that. I was in that cycle, that we were talking about, and I was going the wrong way. Nothing terrible other than I have a business partnership that we're trying to change. Business partnerships, when you change business partnerships or you break up a partnership, it's difficult. Yeah, it's tough on the business. It's tough on the partners. It's tough on everybody.
Yeah.
So I was starting that process at that time, and I was feeling resentful. I had a lot of non-productive emotions going on, and I don't remember exactly the Bible verse that I had read. Actually, I think you mentioned it.
I think so. The Ephesians.
Yeah, Yeah. So I part of my list that I had for the ruck was I had to do a Bible, essentially a Bible study every day. So I'm like a professional life hacker, right? So I find the easiest way to do this and get something out of it. So I found this podcast, and it does a Bible verse every day, and it's 7 minutes. So I can do 7 minutes. I can commit this because it takes me longer than that to get from my house to my office. Where I cold plunge every morning. So on the way to cold plunge, I listen to the Bible verse, right? Cool. And so literally the first one I listened to, and we'll talk about synchronicity later, but it was Ephesians 4:31-32. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ God forgave you. Well, hell. Could there have been a better verse for me that day? And I don't think there could have been. And my father died in 2018, and he, to say that he was, very close to my father, a ton of respect, and I really admire what he did in life. He was actually my stepfather. My dad died when I was very young. My mom remarried, I think when I was like in the 8th grade. He was an old school Depression era guy, grew up on a farm, and I can't imagine the man I would have become had it not been for his input in my life.
Yeah.
And so I've always had a rough relationship with my mother. My mother, loves me unconditionally, obviously. But one of 13 children, sharecropper in Mississippi, probably didn't finish the 8th grade. I don't know what her education level is. Very intelligent, but certainly not educated, but not even like emotional IQ is not high. Just so I struggle with my relationship with my mother. Well, part of this, the ruck, one of the days, like right before this call, was family.
The people fire.
It said pick, and one of the options was if you've got an issue with somebody, clear it up or something to that effect. I don't remember exactly. So I had lunch with my brother that morning, and he said, "Hey, the family reunion's out in Mississippi, and we're going to go out there with Mom." And it hit me then about what my tasks were. And I was going to be in Destin for a multi-unit convention, and I mean, not that 50 miles to Destin from where I live, but I was over that way. So I said, you know what? When I finish the conference, I'll just drive over.
To Mississippi.
So it timed out perfect. So I drove to Mississippi. Didn't tell my mom I was coming. My brother didn't tell my mom I was coming. Cool. And so surprised her at her family reunion. And basically did 75% of the healing. I hadn't spoken to my mother in probably a month. We got in a little tiff and fixed that. That was great, And so that's a couple of the examples. Also on the back of this Bible verse, I saw a very well-known news person had gotten fired, and he released a statement saying something to the effect that, and this was a cultural thing as much, but it appealed to me from business. So he said, those that tell the truth and say it in a calm, non-emotional, non-accusatory way will win the day. And I took that. I was thinking about my partnership issues and some of my other business stuff, about how the things in business that aren't going well, that I should deal with it that way. Typically, I tend to be a little more emotional. I always try to do the right thing. I always try to be, if I have a partner, I try to be the best partner. So when I feel that's not being reciprocated, now I get bitter and all that stuff. So I had to let that go. So the reason I made that statement is because I flipped the switch that week, and every time I talked to people that I was having trouble with, it all started going better. So, you think you read that Bible verse and you think, okay, well, I'm letting everybody off the hook. Well, you're not. You're letting yourself off the hook.
Letting yourself off the hook.
You're giving yourself it's almost, and you'll understand this. If I let you, if you make me mad, at what point is it I'm letting you make me mad? At what point am I empowering you?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm giving you that power.
Right.
And that's what I had done. I had given
Right.
these people that I was working with the power to make me resentful.
Right.
And I just had to take that back,
Right. Mm-hmm.
which kind of fits my whole, like, I like that. You
Right.
know, I like to be the one in control.
In control, that's right.
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
I, you know, it just, but that's
Yeah.
that's the answer to your,
Yeah,
why was
there-
it perfect timing for me?
I'm sure you know the saying, but withholding forgiveness or like holding a grudge against someone is like drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies.
Yeah.
or
Right.
or,
Yeah.
or lighting yourself on fire and hoping that person dies
Yeah.
from inhaling smoke.
Yeah.
And so,
You know,
at a certain point, it doesn't benefit anyone.
I guess I've always had this this concept. I've always tried to look at relationships, business, or anything that's not going well. I always try to look in the mirror first and say, what could I do differently? And because I try so hard in business to be perfect's not the right term, but it kind of is. You know, certainly my intentions are always perfect,
Yeah.
and I always try. If I do something wrong, I do it unintentionally, and so I expect everybody looks at it that way, and when they don't, you know, then I get mad, which is understandable at some level, but for how long and how am I going to let that?
Yeah.
You know, a business is like a child. You got to take care of it. It comes first.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you guys have kids and
Right.
you're trying to watch something on TV or whatever, and they're throwing, and you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you'll see.
Uh-huh.
You'll
Yeah.
see that one day.
Yeah. I've never thought of that. Business is like children.
They have to come first. They get theirs before you get yours, or they don't last.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to back up what you just said about
Sure.
you always try to gain understanding or be, like you said, lack of a better term, perfect
Yeah.
in business or whatever it is that
Right.
you're doing. It made me think of the understanding part, made me think of one of my favorite Bible verses, which is Proverbs 4:7. It says, "The first step to gaining wisdom is seek wisdom. Above all else, gain understanding." And so one way to think about wisdom is understanding how the world works is what wisdom is, and then being able to apply that to your life. But I think that's one of the reasons why you have been so successful in business and other areas in your life is because you desire the understanding that will help you get there rather than just, I don't know, like it almost seems like it takes humility to say, I want to understand how this works.
Yep.
And so I'm pointing that out, I think, it applies to all of the four fires because I've seen people in my life that struggle with growth and achieving something because they're so prideful they don't want to take the time to try to understand something because it's uncomfortable, or they look like they're dumb because they don't know something and they don't want to admit they don't know it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that probably more than I can express. Most people, everyone, in fact, it's there's a spectrum like everything else. Most people put limitations on themselves.
That's big.
In this country, you can doggone near do anything you want to. You know, still as of now anyway.
Yeah.
but yeah, you know, resourceful people aren't necessarily born with resources.
Right.
They learn how to garner resources, or they, you know. So yeah, I've never thought, you know, that I was the smartest guy in the room. I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and if there's more than one or two people in the room, I'm probably not the smartest guy in the room. But I am very intentional about knowing what I am good at, which, you know, would be just really hard work.
Yeah.
And I try not to make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
And I ask for help.
Yeah.
And I've been stunned. I've asked my competitors for help, and you'd be stunned at what people will do for you if you ask.
Yeah.
But most people, like you say, it's pride or fear or whatever.
Ask and you shall receive.
People, you know, particularly, you know, life's like a season, you know, when you're young, you're in the spring of your life, maybe you know, starting of summer, late spring, starting of summer. You know, I'm in the late summer, starting of fall, or maybe later on, you know, who knows? I mean, if life expectancy is 85 or whatever. Right. I feel like a need to give back. So it drives me. So when I see an opportunity that I think fits into the rest of my life to give back, I go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
That's
just
awesome.
it's like a drive. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. That's great. So yeah, that kind of answers my first two questions that I had. So that's awesome. Yeah, I remember you said. All right. So the next thing I wanted to ask you was during the ruck. You said that with your 4 fires, and you said that there were. If you could move it and you could fix it, you had already done it. But you said there are 2 things that you're still working on moving, or 2 things that you haven't been able to move. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, if you're comfortable talking about it, what are those 2 things, or what are the things that you're doing to continue to help those 2 things?
Yeah, I've got the of the 4 fires, I've got the career part. I'm comfortable with the amount of effort. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that we're just killing it and all that stuff. We're doing great, and business is good. But the amount of effort that I put into business, I couldn't put any more wood on that if I really wanted to.
Gotcha.
Maybe, but it would be something else would have to give, right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole. My understanding, and even the logo for the 4 fires is this kind of circular.
That's right.
So if you and I heard this analogy in some leadership conference I went to, but essentially they had this pie chart and we had to fill it out, like how much time do you do this, how much time do you put into that, and you had to draw a line out from the center, and and they go, okay, if you were rolling on 4 of these, how lumpy would the ride be, right? And so that was the equation to life. And so I look at the 4 fires like that, and the career and the physical fitness part. I mean, I'm religious about taking care of myself, but I struggle with the friends part of it. I mean, my family relationships are good, but I struggle with the friendship part of it, and at times have struggled with the family part of it too. Been like everybody, been through some of that stuff. Alan, early on, helped me tremendously heal up, some of the stuff with the kids. I'm not in a great marriage. I mean, I've been honest about that. Struggling with that. Some of the other stuff that I was doing as a result of that impacted my kids, and so I had some work there to do to fix that with my children, and I've done that. The great thing about kids is unconditional love, right? They just like if your kid does something wrong, you just want to see them do better and understand that what they were doing is wrong. So in a way, I feel like the kids seeing me go through some of the stuff I've gone through has been good for them, because number one, you probably looked up to your dad like he was a god for a long time, right? Well, my kids have seen some stuff happen to me and saw how I reacted to it, right? So when you get kicked, you have 2 choices. You can lay there and wallow in it, or you can dust yourself off and get going in the right direction, right? So, I and with Alan's help on, how to package some of that and think through some of that, I probably have a better relationship with my kids now than I would have otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, it's not always winter.
Yeah.
Winter ends at some point.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So, so that I struggle with friends still. I do tell Brad, my friend, every week, every time I go see him, I tell him thank you for our friendship over the years.
Yeah.
And I tell him why it's important to me, because I talked to him about this.
Yeah.
And you'd be stunned at the reactions you get. I tell him every week, and he's like, you could just tell it hits him.
Yeah. Just a simple thank you, and
just
I
hey,
value this.
Yeah, exactly. This is important to me.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm honestly right there with you on the friends part of the
Yep.
People Fire.
Yep.
I'm still diligently working to build up those friendships, those handful, whether it's 3 or 4 or 6, however many it is.
Right.
The guys that Alan talks about,
Right.
if your life was a 100-page book, how many pages do you allow your best friends to read, or how many pages do they know?
Right.
And so that number is pretty low right now for me, because I haven't done the work to have those friends that are super close to me that I've invited in. I'm doing a lot of work right now to create that.
Yeah.
Because I'm 24, but I know that if I want to have lifelong friends when I'm 56,
Right.
I need to be doing the work now in my late 20s and 30s and 40s, or else I would be the way I have been when I'm 56 and feel lonely and don't. I have guys that I can call right now.
Yeah.
But I still don't feel like I don't think my wife could say that's his best friend or those are his best friends. I have many guys that I hang out with at church, and we might go play golf when we do this.
Right.
And so I definitely still have work in that area. So I can relate to you on that one. Yeah.
Well, I still, even now, I did get some breakthroughs, and I have had a breakthrough since the last time I spoke to you in my relationship with God. That I'm eager to share with you.
Yeah.
But I still don't have a clear picture in my head of how having 4 or 5 really, really close friends would impact me any different. I don't know why my life would be any different than it is.
Than having Brad, or just having.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Brad was a byproduct of him being a really good man. As if anybody could have been as interested in golf as I was when we were, for 20 years, he would have been that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of guys interested in golf, but to be as good of a person and, frankly, put up with me at times. I mean, I was very demanding of myself.
Yeah.
And we would travel to play in golf tournaments. If I didn't win, I was pretty pissed off.
Yeah.
Probably not fun to be around.
Yeah.
And so I've confessed all this to him, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So it was going to be hard for me to be friends with a lot of people, just because of how demanding I am of myself. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't want to see that,
Yeah.
They just want to hang out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm a grinder.
Yeah.
So
and man, that's a gift. I mean, it really
or
is
curse,
a gift.
depending on what you're grinding on.
Depending on what you're grinding on and whether you control it or not. I think whatever your gift is, it can turn into where it controls you, and then it's a curse.
Well, I tell my daughter, that, and I tell her because she's just like me. I mean, she's
Mm-hmm.
just like me, which is really sad for her. But except she's smarter than me, which is great. But that X-Men, the guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
I'm like, I tell her we have that. So you got to be very careful where you point this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got this superpower that we can get whatever we want.
Yeah.
But you got to be very careful about what you pick.
Right.
Because you can wind up, pointing at the wrong thing, and you'll get it, but you might not know everything that goes with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've done that.
Yeah.
I've done that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so let's go to what you were just talking about
Sure.
with the Purpose Fire.
Sure.
So at the beginning of the Ruck, I know you had said the Purpose Fire is a challenge. You said if I can't see it or touch it, I struggle with it.
Yep.
So let me hear what your big breakthrough was.
Well, yeah. Are you familiar with a reticular activating system?
I'm not.
Okay. So if you become interested in charcoal gray F-250s, and you go and like you're going to think about buying one or something, and you're riding down the road, you'll start seeing them everywhere.
Right.
They're everywhere.
Right.
That's your reticular activating system. So your mind says,
Okay.
I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
And so your subconscious will start picking stuff out.
Yeah.
So there's some very famous people that say they challenge themselves, like right before they go to bed.
Yeah.
No, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So then there'll be something that you can listen to something, and it's something that would just normally you would filter out. Mm-hmm. Something will be said, and your reticular activating system kicks in. And you go, I'm listening now.
Yeah.
There's a difference in having a relationship with God and organized religion. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
Yes.
So I have been listening. One of the things about the Ruck that's great, and one of the big things I learned on the Ruck was the filter of inputs. So what you let in, no matter how old you are or how mature you think you are or how immune to whatever you think you are, you're not.
Yeah. What you
So
put in,
go
you'll put
watch
out.
a couple seasons of Ray Donovan, and the things you think about will be different than the things you think about before.
Yeah.
All right, or Yellowstone, or whatever.
Yep.
So during the Ruck, you can't stream. I cheated and watched some soccer games, but I admitted it.
Yeah. Yeah. We used a mulligan.
But what I learned was that the inputs were having an effect on me.
Yeah.
And so instead of streaming Yellowstone or Ray Donovan or whatever I was streaming, I started listening to podcasts, right? And I'm asking myself about, how can I find purpose for my Purpose Fire? How can I get fired up about this?
Right.
So one of the things I've learned over the years is when you get stuck, learn to ask yourself a better question. So like if you and I are business partners and we're having trouble, how can we exit this and we both feel good about it, as opposed to how can I get rid of that son of a whatever. So just start asking different questions. So I started asking myself, how can I find a way and a reason to believe more in my faith and want to do it, right? Not white knuckling. I'm going to church or whatever, you know? So that's the question I started asking. So I heard a couple of guys and I, just on like political podcast, or I just, Carl Jung's a Swedish psychologist. You know who he is. Okay.
Yeah.
So he wrote this book called Synchronicity, and he talked about, he was trying to find he tried to do some data analysis or some scientific experiments to try to prove God was real or wasn't real. And he never could do it.
Yeah.
But the conclusions that he came, like for example, everybody that believed in God got healthier at his hospital. The ones that didn't, so statistically, he had all these reasons why you should.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the synchronicity part is like the ruck starting at the right time. Or I'm asking myself this question: how can I have a better relationship with God and feel good about it, and be fired up to do it, like not just white knuckling. Damn it, I got to do this. And so I heard Robert Kennedy Jr. of all people, and I'm obviously very conservative politically, and so I just started listening, and I was very interested, on his COVID stuff. But then the very end of this podcast, like a 3-hour podcast, and I hung in there. So the guy asked him about God, and he said, well, I grew up Catholic, I went to church twice a day and all this stuff, but I got into drugs at 15. And he said, I struggled. He said, I am the kind of person, and this is what got me. He said, I am the kind of person that if I make up my mind to do something, I do it.
Okay.
He said, but I couldn't quit taking drugs and drinking. And he goes, I was perplexed, and I started to get depressed, and I thought I was, less of a person. He said, and one of the guys that we were hanging out with became a Mooney, who just like a Carl, what's his guy's name? Anyway,
I don't know. Yeah.
There was a cult.
Okay.
And the guy's last name was Moon, and they called themselves Moonies.
Gotcha.
So he said this guy was as big of a drinker and a drugger as anybody, and he would come with us after he became a Mooney. He would come with us, and we'd be doing drugs and all this stuff, and he wouldn't touch it. Lost all desire. He said, I envied that. I didn't want to be a Mooney.
Yeah.
But well, I mean, he even said, and in reflection, looking back, my attitude about him was so wrong. All this hate I had.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wanted to be a Mooney, fine. Right? What's business?
Right. He was intrigued by how are you making yourself not do this stuff?
He literally was intrigued that the guy could just not only say no, but like make it look easy, right? So he said, I wanted that. He said, so then he started talking about this. He talked about the book Synchronicity and how this kind of happened when he was ready for it to happen, and didn't really believe in God. But one of the things in Yoon's book was essentially fake it till you make it. So just go in there and just do it. And then he said, the way I visualized it was, God was like basically watching every decision I make. So, are you going to watch that? Or are you going to say that? Are you going to think that?
Yeah.
And it had this profound impact. And he's never touched a drug or drank since. And he said, I'm not white-knuckling myself not to do it. It's just I don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of the breakthrough, is that I know it's the right thing to do. And I lived it for 30 days, right? I totally different. I mean, people at work would talk about how different I was different.
You're in a better mood. Yeah.
Happier. And so that's proof. Like
that's great.
Dr. Moffitt.
Yeah.
Want some it's proof that living as if there is a God, whether you can see him, touch him, or whatever, is a better way to live than if you don't, or if you behave in a different way.
Yeah.
And life is hard enough as it is. Why do something stupid on purpose.
Yeah.
So life is hard enough. You're going to get your fair share of knocks, right?
Right.
If there's all kinds of evidence that having a relationship with God improves the quality of your life, why wouldn't you do it?
That's right.
And so that's when I say it, it doesn't sound as much of a breakthrough as it is in my head. So,
Yeah. No, I remember you saying, it's not a burden. If it makes my life better, I want it.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's really as simple as that.
Yeah.
You see proof from other people,
Right.
and then you try it, and
Yeah.
then you see the proof in your own life.
Right.
It makes your life better. That's why I want it.
Yeah. Well, and I said this in the ruck on one of the calls. My life has been a series of plateaus. So I go up and I plateau and I go up and I plateau.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit a peak and I knew it was coming. And because I've done it before, just trending in the right way. And right after the ruck, I had some meetings and things went really well. And I can't help but to think that had I not been in the mindset, the words that would have come out of my mouth or the impressions I would have made on people, I would have been less influential in some of those meetings.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any question of the impact.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's get into what another thing that you said during the ruck was after the second week, you had said, I've begun to see the spirit of the abstentions over the legalism. I guess we kind of were just talking about this a little bit.
Yep.
Of, like you said, that there is definitely a difference between, you said, a relationship with God or religion.
Right.
And so, but what was the biggest perspective change on the abstentions for the ruck are no alcohol, no video, which is Netflix, video games, YouTube, wasted time looking at a screen, no TV,
Right.
no pornography, and no sexual activity outside of marriage.
Right.
So those are the 5 abstentions. So you said that after week 2, you were essentially, I think if I remember correctly, you said, I was just making myself not do those things. I was choosing to abstain, and then after week 2, you said, I realize why I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk me through that.
Well, I'm still not streaming.
Yeah.
I watch sports, but I'm not watching the inputs because, like I said,
Yeah.
I really believe the inputs foul things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not entirely true. I have streamed some.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like, what it was. In the past, before the ruck, I would get finished working and go, home and eat something and then basically go lay in bed and start watching something.
Mm-hmm.
And,
For a couple hours.
I don't do that anymore. And so, the stuff that I'm taking in place of that is much healthier.
Yeah. And one of the things that actually I just heard yesterday at church was it's so important if you're trying to change a behavior, you can't just try to change that behavior. You have to fill it with something good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Run to something instead of,
Right.
I want to go do something, not I don't not want it or whatever I'm trying to say. I'm keeping myself from doing something I really want to do is not the right way to fix anything.
Right.
I want to go do something. I want to go play golf. I'd rather go play golf than go to a bar. I'd rather read this book about this than go to a bar or stream or watch Ray Donovan or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Sitting there.
Shout out to Ray Donovan.
Yeah. Sitting there staring at a blank TV that's off.
Right.
And just sitting there like, gosh, I wish I could turn it on. That's not as beneficial as pick up a book that you're wanting to read rather than sit there mindlessly watching TV every single night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing that you said that I really liked because I've told you that I'm trying to build my people fire and my friends, and I think it's very important to be selective and select the right people that you want to be your friends. We've probably all heard that the one guy, gosh, I can't remember what his name is, but he's got a video on YouTube. It talks about OQP, so only quality people. So like, if the people aren't lifting you up and wanting you to succeed and achieve your dreams and your visions, then those people got to go because they're just holding you down. And so one of the things you said was, I don't have any balcony people in my life, which might not have been entirely true. Maybe you have very few balcony people in your life. And then you said I have a lot of basement people is what it felt like.
Yeah.
And then you had told the guys in the ruck, thank you guys for being the balcony people in my life. And so
And you're right. It's not totally. That's not totally fair to a lot of people in my
Right,
life. You know,
right.
there's some good people in my life,
Sure.
obviously.
Yeah.
What I meant was what I really meant at the time was the work environment, right? So,
Yeah, right.
you know, I start these companies, and just by the nature of being the founder of the company, you have. It took me a long time to understand this because I'm as easygoing as far as I can have like a very normal relationship with like anyone in any of my companies, and in fact I try to. But I've learned over the years that the way I perceive my relationship with people, or the way I perceive my image, or image is not the right term, the impact I have when I walk into a restaurant or into one of my companies, the way the people that work there look at me is different than the way I look at myself.
Right.
And so I have to be very careful about what I say and how I say it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can go in and make a policy that I didn't intend to make. Right. Well, Richard said, this is why we're doing, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I have to be very careful with that. And that's what I really meant is I would love to have some people in my company that are better than me at stuff. I
Yeah.
just, I would love that.
Yeah.
But then even when I think about that, that's just like work skill set related. That's not what this was about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of bled to
Yeah. Yeah.
two categories, right? Work or skill set versus people, quality of people, or people that are living a more balanced life in the Four Fires than I am. Because there are people in my life that are doing a better job with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
In my work life, there are people that are much better people than me in my work life.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah.
I look up to them.
You want to surround yourself with people that are better than you. And the biggest thing that it makes me think of, like when I think of a balcony person,
Right.
For me, I see that person as someone who speaks life into me.
Yeah.
And they want to encourage me.
Right.
Like if I share a goal or a vision, they say, "Man, heck yeah, man, go
Right.
freaking do it!" Like that's the balcony person that I'm envisioning.
I guess I look at it, like I don't think Alan has had such a tremendous impact on my life, and he'll never be. He has no idea like how much I appreciate that, right? And understand it, maybe in a way he even doesn't understand. You can't really.
Yeah.
But and then like the impression that you made on me, and I think all of us during the Ruck, and I think that part of that is because you work here every day, so you're around good people, good quality people. Alan lives a pretty balanced life. It looks like to me. He's got a lot of things figured out. I'm sure he has things he'd like to do better, but
Sure.
don't we all, right?
Don't we all?
We all don't have the gifts. We don't have every gift to give, right?
Yeah.
But there are some good people in your life, obviously, and maybe you should understand that a little. I mean, maybe you should think about that a little more. You've got a lot of good people in your life,
Right.
And that's what I meant when I meant thank you to those guys, because some of the guys on that journey were really solid guys.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, there's some really solid people in that. I was like, I'm coming to the Zoom with a dunce hat on because those guys are squared away.
Yeah.
I love those guys.
Yeah, and one of the things we're still doing with that group of 6 guys is we're still meeting. We're basically doing it every month now, and so
anybody in Augusta, John, and I don't know the name of John's business, but he is. If I lived in Augusta, he'd be my vendor for whatever. He's a great human being.
Yeah, John Boudreau, for anybody out there who knows John Boudreau.
What a great human being that guy is.
Yeah. So anybody out there that wants to participate in the 30-day Ruck, that's one of the pieces of value that you're going to get is the group of guys that you're going to go through with. You guys are most definitely going to click with each other, and it could be a group of guys that continue to meet for months and months or maybe even years, like this group that Richard was in. So that's you're going to get a lot of value from you improving your life and doing the tasks, but forming that community with the other guys is what I think that's where the biggest value comes from, because you get the encouragement and the challenging. Because you have somewhat hard conversations, and guys say things that are uncomfortable, but that's something that one man needs to be able to say to another man.
Yeah, yes, yes, and I think I would say, if I could go back and, well, no, because what I did was great, working with Alan directly. If that's for you, I would highly recommend anyone that hears this that wants to get started.
Yeah,
just set up a call, have a conversation. But the summit is a great, it's kind of one of those deep dives, into into it, and the small groups in that's where you'll get your business handed to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remove the fig leaf, so to speak.
Yeah, if you're not going to be honest, man,
get out.
Well, you're just going to get called out on it.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's going to call bull on you pretty quick.
That's right.
But yeah, that, and then followed up with a ruck, and I'm probably going to do another one this year.
Yeah.
Just because it, particularly if you're the facilitator, I get to hang out with you for 30 days. But yeah, no, I would definitely encourage people to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Because it, like you were talking about earlier, people that have pride and, just don't want to face, face their demons or whatever. I mean, I don't know what this thing is where you think you have to be perfect. I mean, it's kind of weird coming from me because I try to do that.
Yeah.
But I am transparent, and I try to be honest with myself about like, hey, I got a shortcoming here. I got to address this, right?
Yeah.
And what this will help you do is you'll get called out.
Yeah.
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 I mean, in a kind, compassionate way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But like literally, if you're, getting drunk every day and which I've done.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get called out.
Right.
Because if you come to the summit and you get called out on doing something stupid, and you go home and fix it, what could be a better favor? What better favor could you do for a man, or vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it's really about.
Yeah, yeah. And the best part about it was, so in May we had all of our calls, and somebody might call you out and say something that's a little uncomfortable, something that needed to be said, but it's not a man saying, "Hey, you suck. You need to get this better." It's genuine.
It's compassionate.
It's compassionate, and it's genuine from that other guy.
Yeah.
And he's not sitting there acting like, "Oh, I got it all figured out. You need to be more like me." He's just telling you what needs to be heard, what needs to be said for you to improve.
Well, we said earlier, not everyone has all the gifts to give, and like me, I do very well in the career fire and the physical fire. And I know some people look at me and go, how can a guy who, seemingly has some stuff put together have this much of a dumpster fire going on in two halves of his life?
Yeah.
How can that, two and a half of his life? Mm-hmm. And when you're going through it, you can't, it's forest for the trees, right? What the Four Fires does, I think, is gives you, like, you get traffic cam view, right? So you get to get up in the helicopter and go, okay, that's what's going on. Mm-hmm. This is the way to go.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a reset for me. Anytime things get weird, I pull out the assessment and just say, okay.
Where am I?
That's pretty clear, right?
Yeah.
Now I know what to do.
Yep.
And it's kind of a reset button.
Yeah.
And that's what the ruck was.
Yeah. Yeah, the ruck is a hard reset or a snatching of the wheel to get out of the ruts that you've created in your life.
Agreed.
So we talked about this a little bit, but like you had said at the beginning of the ruck, why do I need friends? And then you had said, I'm too wrapped up in my own world to fill in the blank, to whatever with friends. And then at the end of the ruck, I remember on the last call we were talking about, you had said the line, proximity is power.
Yes.
And how surrounding yourself with solid people will help you. Like we've basically been talking about this whole time. So has that shifted the way you think about why you need friends and solid people in your life?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I said that to you.
Uh-huh.
Specifically for you.
Okay.
Because if you're going to go out and actively try to have 5 or 6 friends, be very careful who you pick.
Yeah, choose wisely.
And we talked about it earlier.
Right.
But what you'll see is, I mean, if you want to run a successful business, go hang out with successful business people.
Right.
If you want to be a more godly man, go hang out with godly men. If you want to be more physically fit, hang out with people that are physically fit. Proximity is power. If you want to be a stockbroker, move to New York.
Yeah.
You know, day trading here in LaGrange isn't where you need to be. You
Right.
need to be proximity. If you want to play golf for a living, go hang out at the golf course where people play golf.
Yeah.
For a living.
Yeah.
Because you'll get better.
Right. Yeah.
You may never get good enough, but you'll get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever you think you want,
Uh-huh.
get it intentionally. Be around, and when I say proximity, I mean it goes for friends, it goes for business, it goes for inputs. It's the input thing, right?
Right. And the hard part is trying to find, like we said, choosing wisely. Like I'm trying to find friends or find a solid guy that then I get into my fire circle, trying to help us both grow together to become the 4-dimensional man. Because I want, if I have 4, 5, or 6 men that are my closest friends, when my kids are growing up, I want my kids to see those guys, and for all of my friends to be solid 4-dimensional guys.
Yeah.
I don't want my kids to look at my friends and be like, I want them to look at my friends and think like, man, that guy has got it going on. Because Alan and I've talked about it. There's going to come a point where one day your kids aren't going to listen to you.
Yeah.
But you can have other people in your life that can say the same exact thing you're saying, but it's better received from somebody else than from the parent to the child.
Yes, I agree with that. I just, again, I've been where you are, and I really was just trying to give you my 2 cents on the best thing for you, which is be very careful who you let into your life.
Yeah.
And like I said, you're on a fast track with no baggage.
Yeah.
Don't pick any bags up on the way.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna try my best, but yeah, no, I
did a really good job of that early in my life.
Yeah.
You know, of not picking up any baggage, and it benefited me dramatically.
Yeah.
I fast tracked through the work stuff and you know, whatever people would call successes or whatever.
Yeah.
The reason I was able to do that was because I wasn't thinking about trouble or problems. I didn't have any problems.
Yeah.
Except the ones I could, you know, whatever works. I mean, literally, work or golf or whatever I was doing at the time had 100% of my attention because I wasn't doing anything else.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's power in that. And so I was just offering that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. So after you've been living this Four Fires journey for 3 years and you've gone through this 30-day ruck and you say you want to do it again, what's your greatest advice for a man out there that maybe he's just now hearing about the Four Fires or he's been listening for a while, but he's hesitant to dive in just because maybe it's uncomfortable or he doesn't know where to go? What should that man's first step be?
Specifically, my advice, if you're listening to this, I would literally email Jeff or whatever and get a better understanding of what it is. And then I would just sign up for a rug. I mean, it's like $400 or whatever it is. It's nothing. And if it's not the best $400 you spent, tell Jeff to call me and I'll pay for it. Because it's just, I mean, it just, you know, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're going, I'm stuck and I want to improve my life, I would say if your ego or your pride or and I don't necessarily mean ego or pride in a boastful way, but if you're just ashamed of what you're doing, no one's going to judge you. Everybody's got skeletons in their closet, and if they tell you otherwise, they're lying. And if you're, you know, Jeff's young, but if you're listening to this and you've listened this long, then you're probably in a different demographic.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I heard this said at the first summit I went to. a guy in my group told another guy in my group that his family and his wife deserved a better version of him. And he needed to get his shit together. That's literally what was said. And then I got told a somewhat version of that in a different way, in a more private setting.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this and you feel like your family probably deserves better than you drinking or
Not better than you, better from you.
better from yes
Right,
yeah
right.
better version of you
Yes.
than you going out drinking or gambling or whatever is the sin of the day or a combination thereof. There are people in this group that have done it all. You'll be right at home.
Yeah.
And I promise you that you will be a better man, and at least you'll have the humility. And if you want to get better, there's a roadmap here on how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cool thing. And you can take it with you, and they have these 4-fire assessment cards. You can just fill them out, and you can look at them and go, okay, I know what's wrong. I'm not putting any time into this part of my life. And, it's not a zero-sum game either. It's you do a little better. It's not, you don't have to be perfect, man. Just do some
Progress
work,
over
do some
perfection.
work, and you'll be stunned
Yep.
at the results.
Yep. Yeah, so I know you said you want to do another 30-day ruck potentially this year. We've got one starting. Actually, the last day to sign up is this Friday. So we
Okay.
have one starting on, I think it's August 7th.
Okay.
It's the first Friday in August. I need to
Okay.
double check that date, but it starts in August, and we also have one starting on September 1st. So those two are already scheduled.
Okay.
If you, Richard, or anybody out there listening right now, you want to sign up for a 30-day ruck, you can click the link in the description. Click on either August or September, whichever one you'd like to sign up for, and it is $350. And you can click the link and see all the description. There's much more information than what I've shared and what Richard shared now.
Yes.
But you get a cool backpack and cool journal, and there's some cool stuff that you get in your ruck pack. So click the link in the description if you want to sign up for a ruck. And Richard, you got any other final thoughts that you want to share with anybody?
If anybody wants to go through this and anything I've said has made any sort of impression, and you want to talk further about it, or if you want somebody to go through the ruck with you, I will volunteer to do that if it helps anybody. So yeah, that would be it. And just thank you for having me for this, and thank you for being so awesome as a facilitator in the ruck. It was great, and all the encouraging text, and Jeff does a great job pinging you once a week, making sure you're on your task. We're busy. We get away from you.
Right.
So,
Right.
But no, it's great.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's like we said, I'm always trying to get a little bit better at whatever I'm doing.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you so much for your time, Richard.
Thank you.
And again, click the link in the description if you want to join the Four Fires tribe and get in a fire circle. If you don't know what a fire circle is, check out the episode 23 of the Four Fires podcast. I talk about what the fire circles are and how you can get in one. So click that link in the description, and remember to go live intentionally, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Four Fires podcast.